Hey everyone, Ida from PGP here, and welcome back to Rivalries Thursdays. So, over the past few weeks, we've covered very historic rivalries, and that's why for this week, I wanted to bring it back a bit more to the present. It's not about drivers that are currently on the grid, but it's a rather comparatively recent rivalry. And that is the rivalry of Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber, especially while they were teammates at Red Bull. Meaning the main part of their rivalry was between 2009 and 2013. And of course, Red Bull at that time was led by Christian Horner. So what happened? Well, they became teammates in 2009, and while the team was competitive, they weren't in a championship winning car just yet. But they were still winning some. But it was 2010 that truly kicked everything off, because their car was competitive, and Webber and Vettel were both in contention for the championship. And their relationship soured because of this. And one example, or basically the boiling point, or I should say the first boiling point, because there's one I want to talk about in a second that actually imploded the whole thing. But let's say the first boiling point was 2010 Turkish Grand Prix, when the two collided. I mean, teammates colliding, that's already huge. But teammates colliding when they were fighting for the lead, that is spicy. And of course, it led to the first breakdown of their relationship. And because of how heated everything got, afterwards, Red Bull would often institute team orders. So basically telling drivers to stay behind their teammates, to not pass them, etc. And honestly, it kind of worked, even though no one was truly happy about it. And that unhappiness truly came out, I want to say, in a couple of years later, in 2013. At the Malaysian GP that year, the team issued I want to say, controversial team order called Multi-21, meaning that Sebastian Vettel had to stay behind Mark Webber so that he could win the race. But Seb, being in his Red Bull era, was like, no thank you, and overtook Webber to win. Now, ignoring team orders is one thing, but ignoring team orders when someone is ahead of you in the championship, like your teammate is ahead of you in the championship, is even more so contentious. And because of this, it led to a very spicy cooldown room. If you haven't seen the videos, I highly encourage you guys to go to YouTube and Google and input multi-1021, because that was one awkward cooldown room. Let's put it that way. But basically, multi-21 happened, and basically that was the beginning of the end for them. Because ultimately, Mark Webber would decide to leave Red Bull at the end of 2013. And he also would leave the sport to compete in other motorsport series, but effectively putting an end to that rivalry. But it was so spicy, especially the multi-21 incident, that their rivalry remains one of the most talked about in the history of the sport, especially in the recent history of the sport. I would say it's only surpassed by one rivalry, and that I will cover later. But at the same time, what made it such a good rivalry, and also what I want to say shows how good of a people these two are, is that after a few years, they actually both came out and said that the professionalism and respect they had for each other was still there. And if you have on-track rivals saying that about each other, I feel like those types of rivalries are the best rivalries, because while they can't necessarily forgive that, say they lost a race, they lost a championship because of the other person, they can still acknowledge that the other person is a good driver, which is hard to do. Separating the race from the racer takes skill. And that's why I feel like it's one of the most talked about rivalries to this day. I hope you enjoyed that breakdown and my take on it, and see you guys next week. Bye.